Okay. My next tower is the engineer.
All
And
right.
I'm gonna put it in B tier. But where in B tier?
That's
Oh,
a
this is
that's a good
difficult. I
question.
think it's gonna be behind Hedy even.
Behind Haley, huh?
Like, engineer is the best range strategy in the game. But
Yes.
as of recent months, NFE has clearly been on the back foot when playing Dart Super especially. Like with Heady
Mm-hmm.
Ice, people already knew that Heady Ice would technically beat it, but now it's also the matchup with NC NNFE against Dart Super is just as difficult as against Dart Ace, even though Dart Super goes later. Like it just lost its. There used to be three good strategies: Dart, NG, and Heli, and now the two good strategies. NG fell off. It's a step below those other two. So I
And
can't
she
justify anything higher than B.
and she suffered from people getting better. Um, because it's a drain strategy. Um, and recently people have been gotten better at being more consistent, I imagine. And
Yeah.
also like it it matters less in this case because of the way NFE works, but also Ninja lost his perma sabo. It lost its sabo reset mechanics. So defending ZMGs and BFBs, which NFE already struggled with, made it, a decent bit harder with the new way Ninja works. The synergy isn't quite as strong as it used to be. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I think that's it.
Yeah.
NG's pretty.
And now we go Noob. I'm tempted to put an E tier. I'm not sure. Either E or D. It's difficult one. I'm gonna put it in
Mm,
D for now. Yes.
I'm
Let's
gonna.
talk about
I,
it
I,
first. Balloon Trap is Engineer's biggest asset, but Balloon Trap only works on a handful of maps. And for competitive, almost those handful of maps are all competitive maps. If we talk about low arenas, there are also a significant amount of maps where Balloon Trap is not good on, where you shouldn't use NC whatsoever. So Balloon Trap only works with good placements. Newer players not going to understand those placements. You also need to continually collect the balloon trap while getting rushed, which is a difficult thing to do, and that's Engie's biggest asset. If you can't make use of that, you shouldn't use it. So I'm going to put it in E tier.
I I would disagree because unlike Haley, which is just straight up bad, NG does have one place where it is still good for a noob, and that would be like the early game with the early game upgrade of Engineer, especially with the new sprocket. It can just defend a lot. Like sprocket is just good now. It just
Yes,
works, right?
Sprockets is good. Like
So I think it'd
honestly, if
be
you don't
Haley
want to
than
go, if you
Haley.
don't need to go late game, then Sprocket, then Engineer can definitely work in combination
Yeah.
with cam detection.
It's a lot worse than tech shooter or stuff like that. But it can still act as like a main DPS tower now, especially for like the early game. So like, I think I prefer it being D tier over E. But it's
Okay,
still not good.
like it's a working DPS tower, but it doesn't pop LEDs as a DPS tower, and
Hmm.
doesn't pop cameras as a DPS tower, and it's a worse DPS tower than the towers that are currently above it. So it has
Yes.
three big weaknesses compared to other towers that
Hmm.
are already on the list and are
But
above
it
it.
doesn't. I just don't think it has like the same complexity that
Yeah,
Haley is.
but
Like I
as a new
could see it
player,
be
yeah,
easier. I just don't want it to be compared with Haley because I think they're like
yeah,
vastly different in terms of
yeah,
viability here.
like
It's still
new
horrible. Don't get it
new
wrong, but
players
it's not.
should stay away from balloon trap. You don't just watch a video from Zigzag Power, Ace Sensation. Like, oh, NC good, let's use balloon trap. As a new player, stay away from balloon trap when using engineer. It's it's too difficult. Don't,
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
okay, next
Is that all
tower.
we have to say? Next tower. All right. Ooh, let's go with something that recently became very good, but is still not getting the use that I think it should deserve. Bomb Shooter got
Knew it.
the most insane buff that I've seen in a long time. $200 cheaper on every mauler. The impact has 50% more pierce and now actually like hits everything and actually like stalls things forever. in like the late game, like 200 per molar, like that's a lot. That's like it's so much cheaper. I think bomb is B tier and on the higher end of the B tier. I think I'd put it above the heli.
Fair
It's just
enough.
not having seen the use it deserves, but we'll get to it later. But Darling Farm Bomb is just really good right now, especially like on the current competitive maps. Like it doesn't get drained as it used to be, and even if you drain it, now the late game is just cheaper. Like before, you needed infinite money to make Dartling Farm Bomb to work late game. Now you don't need as much infinite money to make Dartling Farm Bomb work late game. That's like such a massive difference, and it's still like one of those strategies where like stopping it from getting its BAA is like almost impossible. And now like sending it a BFB or whatever, like the impact works. You don't need like to like get backup defense, whatever. The impact just works,
Yeah.
right? Like the thing works now with bomb and like Cobra Bomb Mortar, right? It's like a niche strategy, like drain strategy, but it's a good counter for stuff. And now the bomb is just always there and it's like, reliable too. It's just also another strategies like to talk about because less known. Sniper Bomb Mortar is just amazing. I just think Bomb received like insane buffs, but because people didn't play Bomb before, they don't really know like all those intricate designs and like strategies. It hasn't been used a lot, but I do believe Bomb deserves its place in the good towers
You
now,
know what I
not
think
just.
what's holding bomb back in the current meta?
Mm,
People prefer stars over DPS. Star,
mm,
especially when triple star was a thing, people were just trying to get star to work. People going ninja from ice. Everything
mm,
was based on star. The only thing that people now, so people still like prefer stars over DPS, except
mm.
with Super Monkey. So Bomb has to
Yeah,
compete with Super Monkey. And
yeah.
it just
This is
can't
a hard
compete with
job.
Super Monkey late game. And that's why that's
Mm,
compete with either with stars or with super. That's it. That
yeah,
it and it's difficult. People need to optimize it more for it to work. Like if you
yeah.
don't utilize bomb properly in the early and mid game, you're always gonna get outperformed by a super monkey.
But this is where like this is the competitive tier list, right? So we're supposed to talk about like if they're good at bomb. Like we talk about wizard having like slightly worse for like learning and stuff, but I don't think bomb deserves a similar place with wizard. Like it
Yeah,
has like difficulties of learning it and stuff, but the potential of it is really high, especially dartling bomb. Really
yeah.
high potential. Can like outlast dart from super in some cases. Like it's very strong.
Yeah.
Um, Bomb for noobs. I haven't really thought of that much. That's weird. I either place it B or C. Um, I'm not too sure. I would roll with C on the very high end of C, probably B tier. Um, Mostly because of the weakness to black balloons. Um,
Fair enough.
it gets
Recently, I'm not gonna say names, but I've seen someone in CC who was screen sharing using its speed with fire, and I'm like I'm amazed that his opponents were not sending more black balloons because he was literally going triple cluster,
yeah.
but with zero other towers on the screen, and his opponent was not sending
Yeah.
blacks.
It's a very good tower. It's very cheap. Like I think the Maulers could make it go higher on the list. But the problem with bomb is that it's so every time you get an upgrade for bomb, it's so one dimensional, right?
Yeah,
So you get your cluster, it's very good group popping power that gets ignored by blacks. So you need something to deal with the blacks and you need something to deal with the camos. I forget about the camo. When you get a Mauler, it's very good against the mobs, right? You say you need the mob popping power, then you get a few Maulers, right?
yeah,
But like a noob, they'll see like a ZMZ or mob, they'll get like 3, 4 Maulers instead of like the few they need because like that's what Mauler is good. But it's horrible at dealing with the insides. So bomb is like very good at like what it's looking at, right? What it's meant to do, it's very good. The impact is good at stalling, especially now after the buff. The cluster is very good at dealing with group, but it has the weaknesses, and because of those weaknesses and the like one directional view it has, bomb is very good, but it has those weaknesses that would make a new player fall into traps and just die because of it.
yeah. I think a problem with bomb is it's a DPS tower, but it's not your main tower, which is a rare thing. It's your DPS tower, but not your main tower. You can't because it cannot deal with blacks. It cannot deal with space balloons in the early game. Doing a bomb start is full bomb early game is not that viable, and especially for a new player, difficult to manage. And even in the mid game, it can't pop camos, so it cannot be your main defense. Like, it can be your main damage against regular group balloons, which because it's good against that, but it cannot be everything you have. And same against mobs and BFBs. You can just not. It's not possible to spam one upgrade, which is easy for noobs. Just spamming one upgrade. You have to have a couple maulers, have an impact, and have some cluster, and then have something to do with camos. You need to properly balance all of his upgrades to make it work. And if you don't do that, like you said, then you just die to BFB insights.
Mm-hmm. The reason it's still C, not like D tier or E tier, like the Haley and Angie, is that it's still good.
It's
right?
good at what it does. You just have to make it work.
You just have to make it work. Like Angie, like you could make it work, with like the early game stuff. Bomb will work. It's just that if you overdose on stuff, that's when you get punished. That's why it's not B tier, because it has that complexity that a new player might struggle with and fall into traps. But it's still good, so that's why it's still C tier.
Okay. Yep. Now that's the next hour. Thinking about picking Cobra. I'm gonna put it in D tier. Behind Chipper.
Well, because of the if the competitive landscape of like the map pool would be different, I would heavily argue myself for a C or B tier Cobra even because of the short maps, but because of the recent nerf, and
it's not even that
just the competitive maps that people play.
But yeah,
it's very niche counter strategy, but it's just that it's a counter strategy now. And because people don't competitive play the map where Cobra is actually forces victories, like on actually one of those maps got removed. Was it Off Base? The Off Base just got changed, whereas before Cobra was a forced victory factor around 14.
I still argue that Cobra is still mad on that map. I think.
I forgot. It's not one of the most annoying Cobra maps.
It's not a map that gets played to competitive. If you look at it's funny that the two most dominant competitive strategies are both weak to Cobra, yet they beat Cobra. I think that's saying a lot about the current state of Cobra, because without Super does nothing against Cobra, nothing, and Heli Ice has always struggled to adjustments, and both of the strategies beat Cobra with ease on most maps. So that's why I can't give the high placement. When the strategies that's supposed to struggle against it beat it with relative ease nowadays, then it needs a buff. It's subpar, way subpar. But for the noob list, I'm gonna put it in A, above everything.
Yeah.
The reason I'm not putting it S because it costs 5,000 medallions, and a lot of players won't be able to afford it. But last update I requested a Cobra buff. Everyone wanted a Cobra buff and didn't get it because low arena players still struggle too much against Cobra. And yeah, I agree.
It's a free win button. It's low levels.
If you people still misuse Cobra all the time, even low arenas. I've seen people spam attrition to steal lives. Yes, steal attrition to steal lives does not make your opponent go to 0. It stops at 1. It's not a good thing to spam. But for the people who do know how to use Cobra and play low arena, it's literally a free win. Spam blue adjustments and your opponent will die because it's difficult to defend.
Basically, the moment someone in low arenas learns what Cobra is and what it's supposed to do, that becomes a free win button, and that's where it's so strong. The only reason it's held back is that it doesn't do anything on its own except winning the game, so you still need to get to that point where you win the game with one less tower, but it's a free win button. So that's the point.
Once you learn what it does, once you can afford the upgrade, the tower, and learn what it's supposed to do, you beat basically everyone till see Ceramic Crucible. I think in Ceramic Crucible you kind of start facing players who kind of know what they're doing and know that how you're supposed to defend infinite gamma ceramics. But
Hmm.
before that, it's kind of broken.
Yeah.
If it was possible, I would make two different Cobras balancing, one for
Mm-hmm.
below CC and one for above CC, because Cobra is not like this is arguably S tier,
Hmm.
but
It's just the price and
it's
like
just
the
it's just
limitations. Yeah.
yeah, and but it's D tier in the competitive map.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
yeah,
similar spot to Tech Shooter.
it's similar but even more
Yeah.
extreme.
More
I'd
extreme.
say
You're right.
it's
Um. Yeah, I don't think there's much to talk about. It's broken for noobs. Good players know how to handle it.
like
Um.
either should make two different balancings for Cobra, or they should just straight up ban it in White Wasteland, Yellow Stadium, those type of arenas. Just straight up banned to Rainbow Ruins or something.
Yeah. So that yeah, it's very difficult to balance that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I feel like if you buff Cobra, right, then it becomes even worse for the new players compared to Tech Shooter, where like if you buff like the Tech Shooter damage like mobs, it's not gonna change the like placement of Tech Shooter that much for noobs, but it's gonna change it for good players, right? It's
Yeah.
that kind of like dynamic where like the strong points of Cobra, if they're buffed, it gets too emphasized for noobs, so it's like very hard to balance. Where Tech Shooter, you can buff it for good players without too much impacting the noob
No,
player
because it's gonna
base.
stay the exact same for
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Now for a new
uh,
tower, um, this is difficult to pick. Um, I think I'm gonna keep Super Monkey for you because I haven't actually like seen it much.
okay.
I will talk about Mortar.
More.
Mortar was at some point people realized it was the pinnacle of the support tower, and then that said strategy, um, people starting hating on it, and then it got massively nerfed, and now it's C tier.
Wah, wah, wah.
Mortar used to be A tier, like above Dart Monkey and stuff, but it's a support tower. So even though, like, if you go look at the price differences, you're gonna say, yeah, it's like $200 more, $200 more here. It's not that big of a deal, right? It's a support tower. It's an early game
It's
support tower. Those price differences was all that it mattered for Mortar to go from that top tier tower to C tier, and at the same time, all of its synergies, like all of them, Ninja, Boat, and Cobra, all of those three towers, like those top tier synergies with Mortar, they all got dumped. They
yeah.
all got nerfed. Sabo lost like a lot of Sabo lost the perma Sabo and stuff. Um, both just got nerfed to the ground with the price changes at the same time as Mortar. And Cobra got nerfed too because of the situation with the new noobish player base. And just so Cobra doesn't lost all of its synergies through nerfs, and it also got nerfed a massive amount for a support tower. And now it's like all the way down to CC because there's nothing that works anymore. The thing is, Mortar fundamentally is still a strong tower. It just doesn't have the stats to do it anymore.
Yeah. It's like the best way to show how bad Mordor has become is just go to all the strategies that used to be viable. Both from Mordor, still viable, but on popular competitive maps, both from Glue is slightly better. And slightly better is enough to make no one use Mordor anymore. Like, why would you put yourself in a small disadvantage? People go Glue. Then you have Ninja from Mordor. No, no one is using that. It's, it's double style, but people rather go Engie with Ninja, not Mordor. You go see Cobra Mordor or Bob Cobra Mordor. Cobra is bad. If you want to go with range threat, again people go Engie. What else? You've tech farm Mordor. Well, you see tech in E tier. I think that's saying enough. And then Mordor can also be used for ecoing. Uh, but yeah, look at what's in S tier. Farm. Ecoing is not
Yeah,
viable. Yeah, there's just nothing that Mord has going for it.
I'd say arguably, weirdly, its best strategy right now, um, outside of like the obvious, would be Sniper Bomb Mortar. But the current competitive map pool doesn't emphasize that strategy a lot. So it's yeah.
Yeah. Well,
For the noobs, this gets a bit difficult. I'm struggling between A and B tier. So I'd say probably the high end of B tier because it does have some caveats that come with it. Um, in terms of strength, I'd put it A tier with the dart and tag shooter, but kind of compared to tag shooter where I'd put it in S tier, but because of the caveats, it's A tier. Mortar's A tier, but because of some caveats, it's B tier.
yeah.
It's just like I said, it's good support, and for those new players that don't have like the money part of the game, especially with the farm, as much of an emphasis, those price changes actually don't affect it too much. They still affect it a lot, but not as much. And also, the games don't get as late and stuff. So Mortar being an early support tower is very strong, but the strongest point of Mortar is that it is cheap the camo on almost every single map. Cheap the camo on almost every single map. It pops lead. Bernie stuff is strong, right? It's consistent, right? Except for like some few exceptions with pinks and stuff, but like that's like the caveat that nerfs it. But like it's just strong support that handles almost every map, and also has perfect synergy for noobs with another tower that is very strong, Tech Shooter. And
Yep.
also, to some extent, Dart Monkey, weirdly. Like, those two top towers, Mortar for new players, is actually
D-
like the best support you could ask for a new player well,
don't
in
forget
combination with those
Cobra.
towers. Don't forget Cobra. All of those A tier towers we have right now, Mortar is the best support tower that we would recommend to a new player. It's cheap decamo, handles the leads. Bernie stuff is just great damage overall. And even like big one is good for like panic button when it gets a bit later and like there's like big ceramics, especially versus Cobra and stuff. And even like if like somebody like a new player like goes out of their way to like go burst or something, Mortar's just good at that. Like he's just
Yeah.
good popping power. It
But
just does
now
it.
let's talk about why it's in B tier and not A tier. It is the cam detection on almost every single map. If you know how to target it.
If you know
Yeah,
how to target.
I
It's
think that's where the problem is. It's in no arena. It's not full cam detection.
yeah.
It,
So that's where the caveat is. You do need to learn how to use mortar a little bit, just a little bit, but that little bit for new players that don't necessarily, watch videos or stuff like that, that little bit can be a massive difference between
yeah, I think
surviving.
I think Mortar has many different mechanics that are difficult to use. But even if you ignore all of those,
Yeah,
it's still good and low tier.
it's still
Like
good
even
for
if you
new
don't
players.
know how to properly micro it around, if you don't know how to mortar style micro, don't know if you how to target your cam detection, you're still gonna be fine in lower arena because people are not gonna camo explode the mortar like they would do in
Nope.
high arena if you misplace
You
it.
only get to like
So
game where you have to micro it.
yeah,
You won't have to handle with like the whole region black overloading that happens with like the leads and stuff in a higher level. They're not gonna do those like combined rushes where you can't hit the 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 blacks below the lead and stuff like and Ninja 4 mortar struggles. Those are not things that are happening in low arenas where you need to learn those higher levels of mortar play to handle. And it's just great support. It's just there.
I agree.
That's his job.